Picture it. Washington, D.C., 2004. What's up, Fort Knox? Welcome back to my channel. It's great to be sitting back here with you wonderful people. And thank you so much for tuning into my channel. Make sure that you subscribe if you haven't already and click the notification bell so that you are notified every time I have a new video up. As you saw in the title of this video, it's kind of a story time. It is basically the story of how I came out as being transgender, or like how I first started my transition. A lot of you have been asking for this video simply because I told you about what it's like to date being transgender. And I also talked about what it was like growing up transgender. But I didn't talk to you guys about what it was like when I first came out as transgender, or when I first transitioned. And a lot of people hit me up and said they wanted to know about that. So here you go. So it was 2004. And so almost 16 years ago. And I had just moved to Washington, D.C. in 2000. So I had been performing for 3 years, and I had been around a lot of trans people. And so many people that, because I was so small and so girly, a lot of people were like, oh, you're going to transition. You're going to get titties. I know you're going to do it. Like, and I was just like, no, I'm not. Like, totally in denial and totally like, oh, I don't want them to know. Like, you know, whatever. And I pretty much was like living as a gay male, but I was so girly that it just, you know, this is a crazy thing. Okay, so I started growing my hair out longer. It wasn't quite as long as it is now, obviously, but I started growing it out. I started wearing makeup because I was a makeup artist at the time, and I was working at a department store behind the counter. And so, you know, I started wearing makeup, just, you know, kind of like boy makeup. And then it turned into like more makeup and more makeup and more makeup. And then the hair got longer, and then I started wearing extensions, and then I started wearing wigs. So it was just sort of like gradually going into this thing, you know, and so much to the fact that I would look the way that I did, which was already naturally kind of feminine. Well, very, not kind of, but very feminine. And I would go into the men's restroom, and people would be like, are you in the wrong restroom? I get called ma'am all the time, and I'd be like, I'm sir, like whatever, you know, whatever. And they're like, but you're trying to be ma'am, right? And I'm like, no. But I was totally in denial, and I wasn't in denial myself. I just was kind of like, I didn't know what the stigma would be, and I didn't know how to tell my friends. And so it was just kind of me living just as a gay male. And I was like the gay best friend to a lot of female friends that I had. And that was very interesting going into a men's restroom, because I always got the look like, when they look at each other like, what? So I finally got up the courage to, you know, because I'd been around, like I said, so many trans people in the gay clubs and in the clubs that I had been performing in. And I had already actually started impersonating Beyonce also. So this was 2004. Crazy in Love came out in 2003. So that's when I first started impersonating Beyonce. And so I was kind of seasoned into performing. It was 4 years in. And so I just started, like, you know, dressing more, and the clothes became slightly less masculine, but they were still boys' clothes, but like it was just kind of like, it wasn't as, I don't know, it was just, it's a very, if you saw me, if I show you pictures of me back then, it's just sort of like, you look like a girl's head from here up and boy from here down. It's very tiny, like a tiny person, but like confusing to everyone. But now I look back at it and I'm just like, I was just being me, honestly. And whatever moment I was in my journey, that's just, it was what it was. So I decided one day that because I lived with, my roommates were all like gothic and punk and very kind of like, and so they were very free. So it was very easy for me to be free. And so I started like dressing up when we would go out. So I would dress up, like when they would go to the goth club, I'd dress up like a girl and just be kind of like, you know, corseted and very like gothic, and but like still like girly and everything. I'd wear some of the clothes that I was performing in, but like on like the goth side. And so I was into that whole goth movement also, and punk, and just because I was influenced by the people that I was living with. And so I just decided that I was going to start dressing every day, but I wasn't going to tell anybody because I felt like somebody was going to try to talk me out of it. So I decided, in order for no one to talk me out of it, in order for no one to say anything, I'm not asking your opinion. I'm just going to tell you this is what I am, but I'm going to wait till after I start dressing to tell you guys. So I started buying girly clothes, and I was new, and I guess it's the same way that when you're transgender, you go through adolescence in a different way, the same way that most people go through adolescence, but you go through it all over again when you're transitioning, because you're trying to figure out what kind of girl you want to be, what kind of style, and your body like everything's very different, and even your body starts developing, once you get on hormones and all those things. So it's, and then your mood changes and you're hormonal. So it's sort of like going through adolescence all over again. And that's really what it is. So I started dressing, but I remember wearing like all pink clothes. Like I would wear a lot of pink, so much so that I had a load of clothes. You have your lights and your darks. I would have clothes that were pink clothes, like a load of pink. And I'm like thinking that, being a girl meant wearing pink. I don't know where that all came from, but I guess I just thought it was the most feminine thing ever. And so that was the first thing. And then, I grew up with 3 girls. And, my sister, I have 3 sisters, and I was surrounded by women, lots of aunts, my grandmother. I was always surrounded by a lot of women. So I kind of had a good template for the type of woman I wanted to be. I had studied women so much, my behaviors and all these different things, and decided that's not the kind of girl I want to be, or that's the kind of girl I want to be, whatever, very classy, or, not just my own. I had to figure out for myself what it was and how I wanted to be. So, and I was also trying to figure out my style, and, it just kind of, back then, it was so terrible. Oh my God, even down to the purse that I carried was always these little girl purses, and it just was trying to figure it out. And so I look back at pictures of myself and old outfits. I don't know if I'm going to post any of these pictures over here. God. But when I think about it, it's just so God, you were like a little kid, like a little teenage girl trying to, even though I was in my 20s, but that's just kind of what it was. And so finally I told my friends, because I had already started dressing, and then I told my friends, I got something to tell you. I don't know how you're going to take it, but this is what I had decided. I decided that I'm going to become a girl. I am transgender. I never told anyone that I was trans before, even though I always knew it inside. Like I told you guys in my other videos, I've always known it since I was a kid. But I thought it would be easier to live as a gay male. And at the time, we're talking years ago, it kind of was. It was not a popular thing to be transgender. It was not a talked about thing. It was very taboo. So, 15 years ago. So I told my friends, and I was very nervous about what they were going to say and what they were going to think. And I have the best friends, because they were just like, it's about time. And this makes sense. And we were all wondering when you were going to do it. I'm like, well, damn, I wish somebody had told me, they were very supportive, and they were just, and they were just like, okay, so what name are we using? What's the name, And I had not even figured out a name yet, so I just was using my stage name at the time that I had, which was Epiphany, and that was, they're like, well, you got to figure out a name. And I always said that, if I had a daughter, I would name her Riley Giselle Knoxx, and I thought, why am I wasting this name? I'm just going to go ahead and use it. Might as well use it, because Lord knows when I'm going to have a girl. So that's the name that I'm going to be. And quickly, my friends just kind of switched over. It took obviously, I think the name was easier than the pronouns, because they would slip up and sometimes say he or him or, whatever. But then they would apologize immediately, and it just took some time. So that was how it went, telling my friends. And then I had to tell my sister. And my sister, I was, very close to my sister, and she was very supportive. And then I think the word kind of got out in my family, in my extended family, that, he's dressing like a girl, or he's whatever. I don't know if they thought it was a phase or whatever. I think some of them probably thought it was probably just a phase that I was going through, or just the way I was playing dress up or something. And I went to the South, which is where my mother's side of the family is from, and we went to Charleston, South Carolina, which is where my uncle lives. Went to his house. I had made sure that I got like the cutest dress. This was the first time, sort of like my debut to my family. And it's like, oh, you know, they're going to see me for the first time. I need to look good, like everything, nails, hair, everything needs to look good, right? I still have the dress that I wore. I still have that dress. It does not fit, but I still have it. And I remember going with my sister to the family reunion that my uncle was having at his house, and my cousins saw me and they were like, "You look so pretty." And my uncles and aunts saw me and they were just like, "Wow, you're a pretty girl." And it was just sort of like, my cousins were always, because of the way I grew up, they always kind of thought of me, like, I always knew I was girly. And then I have some cousins that say that I was the girl cousin. So they were just like, yeah, this makes sense. It was sort of like one of those things like, oh, we get it now. This is not just plain dress up. This is who you are and this is what you look like. Like you're too much of a girl to not be a girl, you know? And the greatest thing that happened, I remember this so clearly, is my aunt, who's my aunt by marriage. She's married to my uncle, and it was kind of a newer marriage. And she said to me, she was just like, if anybody says anything to you or treats you any kind of way, you come talk to me. No one's going to treat you any kind of way in a bad way in my house. I'm not going to allow it. So you come tell me. And I was just like, okay, thank you. And it was nice. It was really like a nice, I think you guys, I've told you guys about struggling about, you know, with my family and telling them. But that was really one of the best moments. And that's kind of how I came out. That's how I came out to my friends and my family, like kind of in a nutshell. I'll go into detail as I talk to you guys more about being trans in the future. And if there's any other details that you want to know, just put it down in the comments and I will definitely tell you guys. I think the thing that I have that's a little different for a lot of people is I transitioned a longer time ago, so 2004, whereas if you're just, you know, transitioning the last 5 years, it's a little bit different story because the world was in a different place, and the rules were different, and the media was different, and the laws were different. So, you know, if there's anything you want to know or, you know, want me to add to this series, because I told you guys I'm going to talk about this as much as you want me to talk about it until, you know, I get more understanding or however it helps someone, I'm happy to do so. Until then, I love you guys for listening and watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Love you. Bye.